What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot more stuff that's been continuing to come in. We have more models that we can now finally show you as we're getting closer and closer to these systems that are expected to come through. And we are now looking at potentially a multitude of threats that are going to be going on in the next week or so, as we are seeing a double snowstorm event. The first one happening on the 7th, the next one happening on the 9th. We're also seeing a potential ice storm event, especially in the Appalachian Mountains and potentially Washington, D.C. And we're also seeing a severe weather threat for those of you who are tuned in from the Deep South. We're going to go ahead and cover all of this in detail in this video, so that way you guys have an understanding of what we're looking at going into the next week or so. So we're going to go ahead and start with the GEM RDPS, and even though it doesn't give us the whole picture, as it's still 84 hours out and we're still seeing a lot of snow in Pennsylvania and just starting to happen in New York, it does give us a good enough idea to get an understanding of what we're looking at in more of the short term, at least for this first snowstorm. So the first situation we have right here is, based off what I'm seeing right now, this snowstorm is going to start organizing and developing in New Mexico starting around tomorrow or so. In fact, if we go ahead and show you the NWS stuff, there's actually winter storm warnings in effect for parts of Arizona and New Mexico as of right now, and that's actually related to this whole system that's going to be moving through New Mexico, Colorado, Oklahoma, the Texas Panhandle, and the snow part of it is expected to kind of linger and start to weaken, but then things start to really get a bit frisky in the Deep South, as we are looking at a very significant rain event and potential severe weather event for those of you tuned in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, the Florida Panhandle. And then things start to get to ramp up once again as you start to see that wintry precipitation start to ramp up again. But another thing we're also starting to look at now is a potential ice storm for those of you who are tuned in from the Appalachian parts of Tennessee, North Carolina, Kentucky, West Virginia, and even into Virginia right here as we continue to see that situation. The reason we are seeing that right here, and I'll go ahead and pull that up for you guys right here, is at the surface, the temperature at this current point across much of the Appalachian Mountains is like 28, 27, 26, 25, 24 degrees Fahrenheit as of right there. But if we go ahead and go up a little bit further up, if we go ahead and show you the 925 right here, we're still looking at like -4 degrees Celsius, which is about like 25 degrees Fahrenheit. 850 right here, as you can see, that's when things get interesting. In parts of the Appalachian Mountains, we're starting to see like temperatures above freezing at 850 millibars, which is about 1,500 meters above the surface of the atmosphere, give or take. But because we're in the mountains and the Appalachian Mountains are like what 4, 5, 6,000 feet up, it's going to be more of a freezing rain threat, primarily due to these temperatures that we are seeing, because right as it gets to the surface, we start seeing a massive cool-off, especially in North Carolina and parts of southern Virginia right here. That's kind of how these freezing precipitation setups happen. You have pretty much the snow particle fall at below freezing when it starts to initiate, and then it transitions into rain as it gets a little bit closer to the surface of the ground, and then just before that it turns into freezing, and that's how you get freezing rain right here. And as you can see, things start to show up, and particularly in areas in the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, could be a particularly serious ice storm if this persists for this long. And even into Washington, D.C., we could see a situation, according to the GEM RDPS, where we have a snowstorm to start with, but then it transitions completely into ice, and then at the last second transitions to snow, which, in my opinion, would actually make things even worse than just getting like 12 inches of snow, because if you're getting like 8 inches of snow per se, and then you're getting a quarter of an inch of ice in association with that, that's going to cause a lot of traffic issues, because it does not take a lot of ice to down power lines. Ice is very heavy. It does not take a lot of ice to lose traction on the roads. We all see this. We all see a bunch of accidents happen, particularly in ice storms where we don't see that much precipitation, but the stuff that's there, basically, you lose all your friction from it, because ice is pretty much, it's physically frictionless. and that's why we see these scenarios right here. And based off of what we're seeing with the GEM RDPS, we are going to be seeing some pretty significant snow accumulation, and we're going to go ahead and show you that with the GEM GDPS, the European, and the GFS, as these are the best models we can kind of give you as an understanding to take a look at. So for the GEM GDPS right here, the snow is really going to be interesting, and that rain snow line that we like to talk about, or that freezing rain line, is pretty much right over Washington, D.C., right over Philadelphia, and just right over, actually, it's right over New York City, as a matter of fact. So it's kind of that battleground of where will this set up? The further south this sets up and the further east it is, the more snow these metropolitan areas are going to get. But the further to the west and further to the north it sets up, we're going to see either a rain or potentially ice storm happen for a lot of these areas, which would actually make things even worse. But in the meantime, the areas I'm paying attention to are D.C., Philly, and New York City, and even into Boston, we're starting to see snow totals exceeding 6 inches as we continue to look at things. So that's what we have going on with the GEM GDPS for the first storm. The second storm is going to be impacting the Chicago area and other parts of the Midwest. So we'll go ahead and zoom in on that in a little bit, but in the meantime, we're starting to see signs of organization and development. St. Louis gets the first impact, while at the same time, we have some severe weather starting to initiate in parts of the Deep South right here. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center has a 15% risk in that area right there. Let's go ahead and move that over to give you an understanding of what we're looking at. As of right now, from pretty much Austin all the way to the Florida Panhandle, we're looking at a 15% risk of severe weather, and this affects about 13 million people as of what we're looking at, because it includes areas like Houston, New Orleans, Mobile, all those areas right there. We're going to go ahead and show you what we have going on. Low-level moisture is forecasted to advect northward on day 6 over the northern Gulf of Mexico as an upper-level trough digs eastward across the southern plains and eventually ejects towards the Mississippi Valley. With the frontal passage going on, most guidance suggests that the lower 60 surface dew points should be present, which that's going to be ample enough for some severe weather right here. If we can go ahead and show you the temperature that we're looking at right here, the surface temps rather. The surface temps across a lot of these areas right here are in the low to mid 60s. So we'll have to definitely keep an eye on it. And as time continues to go on, and especially into Alabama too, where we get temperatures into the mid to upper 60s right here, we'll have to continue to keep an eye on the severe weather threat. Dew points are definitely going to pretty much make or break this. If we go ahead and show you the Cape that we have right here, the Cape isn't really that impressive, I will say this. It's going to pretty much be a shear-driven event if it does happen, but we'll have to pay attention to it as time continues to go on. But in the meantime, as we continue to show you this winter weather event, we start seeing an increase of snow happening across much of the Chicago area, into Detroit, into Ohio, where we could see some freezing rain, Milwaukee as well, and pretty much a round 2 of snow for those tuning in from pretty much the mid-Atlantic. We start seeing snow for the first part, but then it transitions into ice as we go into Pennsylvania, which would actually make things even worse at that point. And then things start to kind of die down, and we have another system kind of just moving through at a very fast pace, potential Alberta Clipper, as we get to the 10-day mark. What are we looking at for snow accumulation? Well, here's what we're looking at right here. The situation that we have right here across much of the mid-Atlantic, it's kind of that one battleground setup where pretty much a difference of 20 to 30 miles across D.C. or Philadelphia could pretty much be the difference of 1 inch of snow and a foot of snow, as you can see right here. In areas in Pennsylvania and West Virginia, especially the Appalachian areas, we're looking at areas of 2 feet of snow in some of these areas from both of these snowstorms that are going to be moving through. In the area around Philadelphia, we're looking at pretty much anywhere from like 2 to 14 inches of snow, pretty much as you move through Philadelphia and go to Bucks County, as we continue to take a look at New York City and areas around Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island. We're looking at like 2, 3, maybe 6 inches at most. And then as we get into Manhattan and the Bronx, we're looking at over a foot of snow. And then as we continue to show you into Boston, Boston's going to be a bit interesting since it's also on that battleground, but it's going to still be around 7+ inches of snow for a lot of you guys over there in the mid-Atlantic. But then as we continue to move to the Chicago area, the Midwest area, here's what we're looking at for the first storm right here. The first storm is going to bring no, not the first storm. The second storm that's going to be impacting is going to bring about 7-8 inches, and then the kind of clipper that we have going on will bring an extra 4 just a couple of days later if this model holds. I'm not sure if it will, but it's definitely an interesting situation. We look at areas like Milwaukee getting up to 9 inches of snow, Chicago getting up to a foot, and potentially in areas west of Detroit. In Detroit proper, we're looking at areas of up over a foot of snow. So we will have to pay attention to this as more data continues to flow in. Here's the European model with a similar time frame. The European showing stuff going on. If we go ahead and show you the the mid-Atlantic stuff, we're looking at pretty much that battleground. It's pushed a little bit further to the east than the GDPS is, because we see areas like PG County and near DC getting like 2 inches of snow. But then as you move to Montgomery County, the western fringe of it could see up to 6 inches of snow. Fairfax County could pretty much see anywhere from 3 to 6 inches of snow from this. So it's going to pretty much be dependent on this battleground setup, as we were talking about, because, for example, in areas like Philadelphia, we could see 5 inches of snow in the city proper, but 10 inches of snow in Bucks County, and even into Chester County, and even into Montgomery County. Whereas in New York City, the temperature line stays just south for pretty much everywhere to get snow. Worcester County gets up to 15 inches, whereas New York City proper gets like 8 to 10. And then, as you can see through Boston, across much of Massachusetts, rather, they see up to a foot of snow, according to the European. Now, if we go ahead and move to the Midwest over here, that's a different situation right here. Midwest, the biggest part of the snow kind of pushes a little bit further to the north than the GDPS is this run, but it's still a significant amount for areas like Milwaukee, Chicago, and even into western Michigan over there, with Milwaukee getting up to 14 inches of snow if that model holds. Last model we're going to go ahead and show you is the GFS model, and the GFS model has been pretty interesting to say at the very least. The GFS for much of the mid-Atlantic, it kind of has the setup a little bit further to the west than DC, although areas like Hagerstown and even into Pennsylvania could see up to a foot of snow, whereas in areas like and up to New York and even Boston could see another foot of snow from this and into the Midwest. The snow shifts a bit more towards the Chicago area, so we're still seeing that disagreement, and it's going to really depend on the setup, especially for the mid-Atlantic storm. But even still, we are still looking at a very heavy snowmaker. We're still looking at a very powerful system that could potentially bring to 14 inches of snow in the Chicago suburbs and up to a foot of snow in northwest Indiana and other parts like Grand Rapids. So we'll have to pay attention to this as time continues to go on, and we will continue to keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel as more data continues to come in. Tomorrow is going to be the day where we finally get to see more of those medium range models and get a better consensus of what's going on. But we're closing the video out right here. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Helps us out, helps us make more videos like these. The goal of this channel is to get more people engaged with weather. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.